My name is Dorian Blake, and my encounter with the NoEnd House is something I wish I could forget. It began with an invitation, an unassuming envelope slipped under my door one quiet evening. The envelope bore no return address, only my name in elegant script. Inside, a simple note read: "Dare to enter the NoEnd House and win a grand prize. Survive all 10 rooms and emerge victorious. Failure is not an option." Intrigued and a bit skeptical, I pocketed the note. Who wouldn't be curious about a mysterious challenge promising a grand prize? But as I would soon discover, curiosity can lead one down very dark paths. That night, I couldn't sleep. The words on the note echoed in my mind, stirring a mix of excitement and dread. By morning, my decision was made. I had to see this house for myself. I had to know if it was real. The NoEnd House stood at the end of a secluded street, its facade old and decrepit. Its windows were dark, and the air around it felt strangely oppressive. I arrived just before midnight, the designated time on the invitation. The door creaked open as I approached, as if the house was expecting me. Inside, a dimly lit hallway stretched out before me. There was no turning back now. A sign on the wall read "Room 1" in bold letters. My heart pounded in my chest as I stepped forward, the door slamming shut behind me. The air inside was thick with a musty smell, like old books left to rot. Shadows danced in the flickering light, and an eerie silence filled the space. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, my footsteps echoing in the emptiness. The first room was a long corridor, walls lined with old portraits. As I walked, whispers filled the air, soft at first, then louder, until they became an almost deafening chorus. The faces in the portraits seemed to follow me, their eyes full of malice. I pressed on, ignoring the voices that seemed to know my deepest fears and regrets. One voice, more distinct than the others, hissed my name. Dorian Blake. "You cannot hide from us." I quickened my pace, the whispers growing more frantic and accusatory. Each step felt like a struggle, the weight of unseen eyes pressing down on me. The second room was a maze, its walls high and covered in strange, shifting shadows. My flashlight flickered as I navigated the labyrinth, shadows twisting into grotesque forms that seemed to reach out for me. Panic set in as I realized the walls were closing in. I quickened my pace, desperate to find the exit before I was crushed. The maze seemed endless. Every turn led to another dead end, the shadows growing more menacing. At one point, I stumbled upon a figure in the darkness, its eyes glowing with malevolent intent. I ran, heart pounding, until I finally found the door to the next room. The third room was lined with mirrors, each one reflecting not just my image but a twisted, horrifying version of myself. These reflections moved independently, mocking and taunting me. As I tried to ignore them, they began to step out of the mirrors, surrounding me. I fought through them, shattering mirrors and finally finding the door to the next room. One reflection, more persistent than the others, blocked my path. "You cannot escape your true self, Dorian," it sneered. I swung my fist, shattering the glass, and stumbled into the next room, shards of my distorted self falling around me. In the fourth room, I found myself in a replica of my childhood home. Memories flooded back, both good and bad. But soon, those memories turned dark regrets and mistakes materializing before my eyes. Figures from my past appeared, blaming me for their misfortunes. It was as if the house knew every guilt I had ever felt. I pushed through the ghosts of my past, their accusations echoing in my ears. My mother, her face twisted in sorrow, reached out to me. "Why did you leave us, Dorian?" she cried. I fought back tears, reminding myself it wasn't real. With each step, the ghosts grew more desperate, but I kept moving, determined to reach the next room. The fifth room was a disorienting chamber where reality seemed to warp and twist. Floors became ceilings, walls shifted, and my senses were under constant assault. I stumbled through, trying to keep my focus as the room played tricks on my mind. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, I found the exit. At one point, I found myself walking on the ceiling, the door ahead seeming impossibly far away. Voices whispered doubts in my ears, but I shut them out, focusing on the door. With a final burst of strength, I reached the handle and pulled myself through. The 6th room was eerily silent. No whispers, no shadows, just complete and utter silence. It was unnerving, the lack of sound pressing down on me like a weight. My own breathing seemed amplified, the only noise in the oppressive stillness. I quickly moved through, the silence gnawing at my sanity. As I walked, I realized the silence was not complete. There was a faint, rhythmic sound, my heartbeat. Each beat echoed in the silence, growing louder with every step. It was as if the house was amplifying my fear, using it against me. The 7th room was a chamber of personal nightmares. As soon as I stepped in, the room morphed into a scene from my darkest fears. Spiders crawled out from the walls, the ground turned into a pit of snakes, and shadows took the form of my worst enemies. Each fear felt intensely real, but I had to remind myself it was all an illusion. With sheer willpower, I forced myself through the horrors. At one point, I was surrounded by snakes, their cold bodies slithering over my skin. I could feel their fangs, sharp and deadly, but I kept moving, repeating to myself that it wasn't real. The fear was overwhelming, but I pushed through, reaching the door to the next room. The 8th room was a void, filled with an overwhelming sense of despair. Voices of lost souls echoed around me, crying out in sorrow. The weight of their sadness was crushing, sapping my strength and will to go on. I had to keep reminding myself of the goal, the grand prize waiting at the end. With each step feeling like a monumental effort, I pushed forward. The air was thick with sorrow, each breath a struggle. Faces of the damned appeared before me, their eyes filled with endless despair. They reached out, begging for release, but I had nothing to offer. I focused on the door, the only escape from their torment. The 9th room was chaos incarnate. The walls pulsated, the floor undulated, and the air was thick with a maddening energy. It was a sensory overload designed to break my mind. I could hear laughter, screams, and whispers all at once, blending into a cacophony of insanity. I pressed my hands over my ears, forcing myself to focus on the door ahead. Images of madness flashed before my eyes, distorted faces, scenes of chaos and destruction. The air felt electric, charged with a malevolent force. I stumbled forward, each step a battle against the overwhelming assault on my senses. Finally, I reached the 10th room. Unlike the others, it was empty and silent, save for a single chair in the center. On the chair sat a small box. I approached cautiously, my heart pounding. Inside the box was a note. "Congratulations, Dorian Blake. You have faced your deepest fears and survived. Your prize is your life and freedom from the past that haunted you. Leave this house and never return." Relief washed over me, but also a strange sense of accomplishment. I had faced horrors beyond imagination and emerged victorious. As I stepped out of the house, the door slammed shut behind me, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. I never looked back, knowing that some doors are better left closed. The NoEnd House had tested me in ways I never thought possible. It was more than a haunted house, it was a reflection of my inner demons. And though I survived, the memory of those 10 rooms will forever haunt me. If you want to see more horror stories, please like the video, share your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. Stay with us, thank you, and see you in the next videos.